Big news for commuters. Starting July 1, transit fares are going up by 3%. This marks the first fare increase in a while, and it could be the start of a yearly tradition. How are people reacting on the ground, and what's driving this change?
You can practically hear the collective groan from daily riders. Social media is buzzing with frustration, especially from those who rely on transit to get to work or school. The official reasoning is rising operating costs, but there's skepticism about where the extra revenue will actually go.
That skepticism makes sense, especially since a 3% hike may sound small but adds up over time. For folks who buy monthly passes, that's several extra dollars a year, which can really hit lower income riders. It seems like there are some clear strengths and weaknesses to this move.
Absolutely. And speaking of strengths, the Transit Authority claims the hike will help maintain service quality and avoid major cuts. They cite inflation and higher fuel and labor costs. But on the flip side, the timing right as people are dealing with broader economic uncertainty couldn't be worse.
Let's dig into the strengths. One argument is that fare hikes are necessary for transit system sustainability. Can you break down how these extra funds might benefit riders in the long run?
Sure thing. If the fare increase is managed well, it can help cover the cost of maintenance, keep buses and trains running reliably, and even fund technology upgrades like contactless payments. Think of it as a small insurance policy against service breakdowns.
That's a fair analogy. It's like chipping in a bit more now to avoid major headaches later. But do you think the public trusts that the money will actually go toward improvements?
Trust is a big issue. According to a recent Pew survey, only 38% of riders believe fare increases lead to noticeable upgrades. The rest suspect it disappears into the bureaucratic void, which is a major perception problem for transit agencies.
Now, let's talk weaknesses. The most obvious one is affordability, especially for vulnerable groups. What kind of impact could this have on ridership numbers and public sentiment?
It's significant. Even a small fare bump can push some people to look for alternatives, especially if they're already living paycheck to paycheck. For example, a 2019 study from Toronto found a 5% fare hike resulted in a 2% drop in ridership among low-income users.
That's a pretty direct correlation. And with inflation hitting everything from groceries to rent, any additional costs feel like salt in the wound. Do you think there's a risk of creating a negative feedback loop, higher fares, leading to fewer riders, which then forces more hikes?
Definitely. It becomes a vicious cycle. As ridership drops, revenue falls short, prompting more fare increases or service cuts, which further erode public trust and use. It's the transit equivalent of a slow leak in a boat. You need to patch it, not just bail water.
Let's pivot to opportunities. Even though fare hikes are unpopular, could this open the door to service improvements or innovation?
That's an optimistic take, but it's possible. If the extra revenue is earmarked for visible upgrades like real-time arrival apps, cleaner stations, or Wi-Fi readers might feel the pinch is justified. In New York, for instance, a similar strategy boosted public approval by 12% after tangible improvements rolled out.
So it's all about delivering on promises. If agencies are transparent and show results, that could change the conversation. But what about pilot programs like off-peak discounts or loyalty rewards though soften the blow for regular commuters?
Exactly. Targeted programs can help offset the impact for those who need it most. Some cities have tried capping monthly fares or offering income-based discounts, which not only cushion the increase but also demonstrate a commitment to equity.
Still, there are looming threats. Chief among them is the risk that fare hikes will push people off public transit altogether. What happens if enough riders decide it's just not worth it?
You could see a real spiral. As ridership drops, not only does revenue shrink, but the environmental benefits of mass transit decline too. It could also fuel more traffic congestion as people turn to cars, which ironically increases city costs. Think road repairs, pollution mitigation, and lost productivity.
That's a classic unintended consequence. There's a delicate balance between keeping services running and keeping them affordable enough to attract riders. Have any cities managed to avoid this spiral after fare increases?
Singapore's a good example. They pair fare hikes with service expansions and efficiency improvements, so people see value for money. But that requires careful planning, communication, and, let's be honest, a bit of faith from the public.
Public perception is everything. Even the best laid plans can flop if riders feel left out of the conversation. How important is transparent communication in this scenario?
It's huge. Studies show that when agencies proactively explain why hikes are necessary and exactly where the money's going, acceptance rates rise by nearly 30%. People want to know their sacrifices are funding something tangible, not just plugging budget holes.
So, maybe more town halls, rider feedback surveys, or even regular progress updates could help. It's like when airlines explain delays, they're still annoying, but at least you feel respected.
Exactly, and it can foster a sense of shared ownership over the system. When people see themselves as partners, not just customers, the whole dynamic shifts. But that trust can take years to build and seconds to lose.
Let's take a global view for a second. How do other major cities handle fare increases, and are there lessons to be learned?
Great question. London, for instance, uses a gradual, predictable fare adjustment schedule tied to inflation, which helps riders plan ahead. Meanwhile, Seoul subsidizes fares with government funds, keeping prices stable but increasing taxpayer burden.
So, it's a trade-off between predictability and affordability, with every city finding its own balance. Are there any bold experiments out there?
Tallinn, Estonia, actually went fare-free for residents, subsidizing costs through taxes. Ridership jumped 10% in 2 years, but critics argue it's tough to sustain without a strong local economy. It's a fascinating case study in thinking outside the fare box.
Let's get into tech. Are there ways technology can help soften the blow of fare increases, maybe by making paying or using transit more convenient?
Absolutely. Contactless payment systems, mobile ticketing, and dynamic pricing models can make the process smoother and even allow for more flexible fare structures. For instance, London's Oyster caps daily fares, so frequent users don't get penalized.
That's a smart approach. Plus, tech upgrades can provide real-time updates, helping riders avoid delays and plan better, which adds value even as fares rise. Could AI or data analytics play a part?
Definitely. AI can optimize route planning, predict demand surges, and even personalize fare discounts. Imagine getting a push notification offering you a cheaper ride during off-peak hour sits, a win-win for both the agency and the rider.
We can't ignore equity. Fare hikes tend to hit marginalized communities hardest. What are some ways agencies can ensure fairness and accessibility amid rising costs?
Means-tested discounts are one solution, offering lower fares to students, seniors, or low-income residents. In San Francisco, for example, the Clippers Start program provides a 50% discount to qualifying riders, helping to bridge the affordability gap.
That's a big help, but I wonder if it's enough. Should agencies also be investing in outreach or community partnerships to identify and address barriers beyond just cost?
Without a doubt, partnering with local organizations can reveal hidden obstacles like language barriers or digital divides that flat fare changes can't fix. True transit equity means tackling all these layers, not just tweaking prices.
As we wrap up, what policy recommendations would you offer for transit agencies facing fare hikes while trying to maintain public support and ridership?
First, transparency is key. Communicate where every cent goes. Second, pair fare hikes with visible improvements and targeted discounts for vulnerable riders. And finally, use technology to create a more flexible, user-friendly experience that justifies the extra cost.
That's a solid roadmap. Ultimately, a fare hike doesn't have to be a one-way ticket. To public outrage, it's handled with care, creativity, and a dash of empathy. Thanks for joining the conversation, and here's hoping for smoother rides ahead.
Thanks for having me. And to our listeners, keep voicing your opinions. Your feedback is the fuel that powers better transit policy. Until next time, happy commuting!